I booked the gate next to yours. 4 a.m. rules at an airport lounge. I didn't come for the flight. I came because the lounge lights tell the truth when people stall. Gate C-17 at 4 in the morning is a democracy of sleep. Heads tilt in identical angles of surrender, departures blink like patient metronomes, and the espresso machine refuses to flatter anyone's optimism. The carpet keeps the night from echoing. I took a seat facing the window because dark glass is the only mirror that doesn't argue. A man in a vest wiped a counter with the devotion of someone who knows that cleanliness is a kind of grammar. My name is Alex. I plan product launches, which means I build calendars that pretend tomorrow is obedient. For months, my wife Renee and I had been living on minimum turbulence. No spectacular fights, plenty of dignified weather. We were excellent at logistics and careful at kindness, and somehow the combination had started tasting like neutral. She had texted at 1:12 a.m. "We're still loading cases, might nap at the office. Don't wait up." Not a lie. A hallway. I had walked down enough hallways to learn that even good ones loop. The counter attendant slid me a coffee that had integrity if not charisma. The first sip filed a report. Awake. I set my carry-on at my feet like an alibi I was too tired to maintain and watched the runway do its slow math with lights. A half-asleep woman at the next table read the same paragraph of a paperback 3 times with admirable stamina. Above the bar, a television insisted on cheerful weather somewhere else. The lounge believed in togetherness without intimacy. That's when I saw Marcus at the self-serve espresso, Renee's operations lead, a man with a beard trimmed to the exact length of practicality. He wore a hoodie with our nonprofit's logo and a tote bag that had seen tarps, stakes, gaffer. He poured espresso into paper as if he were asking it to testify. When he turned and spotted me, he didn't flinch. He squared the cup on its saucer like a prologue and walked over. "Alex," he said, "insomnia or intent?" "Both," I said. "Couldn't sleep and I don't like guessing." He nodded like the sentence had earned its boarding pass. "Fair," he said. Renee on the office couch, genuine asleep under a banner that says "We build together." The banner is not a blanket, but it's trying. He sat, kept his hands visible, made the air less tense. I didn't want to go home to a sink that isn't my fault but still knows my name, so I came here to let airplanes correct my sense of proportion. "I appreciate you telling me," I said. "You don't owe me that." "Maybe I do," he said, "but mostly I owe the hour." He sipped and exhaled the way a plan stands down. "Do you two do rules, not house rules, our rules?" "We do," I said. "We used to write them like vows. Lately we treat them like back-of-receipt reminders." I set my coffee down on its reflection. "You have one." "No trials after 2, he said, not grandly. "After 2, we only move pallets and tell the truth we can prove." I laughed, a sound the lounge absorbed without complaint. "We should stencil that on the inside of our eyelids," I said. "We've been confusing exhaustion with evidence." He smiled, as people do when equipment fits. "Write it down before you start romanticizing your dignity," he said. He tore a boarding pass holder from his tote and slid it over. "Here's paper. Make it a promise the coffee can see." I took a pen from my pocket, the cheap kind that believes in trying, and wrote, "If a night lights you up, invite me while you're lacing your shoes. I'll come if I can. If I can't, I won't turn your light into a report." No photogenic secrets. Nothing we'd enjoy telling better without each other in the story. Touch in daylight every day. Even just a wrist at the sink, a forehead in the hallway, a shoulder while the kettle argues its case. Right of reserve. When the voice wants to climb, step back and read the scoreboard before you rename the game. If either of us starts wanting to be wanted somewhere else, say it while it's small, not after it has luggage. NB, rules are tools, not weapons. Marcus read without gratting. Good, he said. Add a corollary from my favorite crew chief. Eat before you try to win. Donuts before weapons, I said. A man at a diner once notarized a friend of mine with pie. He laughed. Civilization, he said, and lifted his cup. Second civilization, text her a sentence you won't regret at noon. My phone buzzed on cue. Renee, half asleep here, don't drive, breakfast. R. As if the universe preferred clear nouns, another bubble followed. Come see the loadout at 8. We'll pull the tarp together. Relief is not fireworks, it's structural. It changes how weight meets floors. Good, Marcus asked, not nosy so much as thorough. Better, I said, she invited. We watched the tarmac do algebra. A man in a fluorescent vest made a generous circle with his flashlight like a punctuation mark that refuses to be bitter. The lounge murmured. Somewhere between departures a child laughed in a register adults cannot fake. The hour softened but refused to apologize. Marcus finished his espresso with the caution of a man who has learned from Burns. Do you need me to sit here and pretend I'm not a witness? He asked. Or do you need me to be elsewhere and let the lights finish their lesson? You've already done the service, I said. No trials after 2. He stood, steadied his tote like a sentence concluding, and extended his hand. The shake was practical, a proof of weight exchange. Tell the banner it held, he said, and left with the posture of someone who knows where to be when a team is almost done. At 6:12, the lounge dimmed slightly as if it respected sunlight's jurisdiction. I folded the boarding pass holder and filed it under the magnet-shaped boat in my mind, then went to find the day. The site lived behind a chain-link fence like a friendly secret. The tarp sulked in honest blue. Renee waited with 2 coffees and the face she wears when repetitive labor earns its own romance. Her hair was in the ponytail that means how about we just do the thing. She handed me the one labeled black because mercy and habit often share a cup. Breakfast, she said. Gate C17, I said, and offered the boarding pass holder as if it were an invitation to a smaller, kinder treaty. She read, smiling at no trials after 2, frowning in approval at no photogenic secrets, nodding at wrist. So we are a civilization, she said. Do I have to initial? Only if it helps you refuse a weapon later, I said. She tucked the paper into her hoodie pocket like a ticket you intend to use. Help me with this tarp, she said. If that's not an invitation, cancel our calendar. We took opposite corners and rolled back the morning. The first reveal is always the prettiest liar. It promises ease it can't deliver. We did it anyway. Marcus arrived with a pink box, saints disguised as donuts. He set it on a spool that had become a table and declared, "Eat before you try to win," in the tone of a man who won't let sugar pretend it isn't strategy. Do we make a pastry rule? Renee asked. Only eat them before we attempt victory, I said. After that they are apologies. Then 2 now, she said, because leadership is an applied science. Work when believed in behaves. Stakes listen to hammers, rope remembers its job. Volunteers learn the one thing they came to learn, that weather is not character and effort is not a sermon. A woman named Yara lifted a corner with the neat fury of someone who resents gravity politely. Marcus moved through the scene like a humane logistics algorithm. By 9:58 people arrived who needed something true. At 10, the site opened and was, without credit, true enough. Renee leaned close while the first wave practiced hope. Let's admit something while it can still fit in a sentence, she said. Okay. We got polite, she said. I want to get exact. Exact is a good religion for Tuesdays, I said. I pledge wrist. I pledge invitation, she said. When I text come, I mean stand beside me like a witness, not a rescue. When you text come, I will try not to bring a gavel. Deal, I said. Donuts before weapons, no trials after two. And no photogenic secrets, she added, glancing at the volunteers, at the adjacent weather, at the way the air changes when people decide not to be clever. We worked. I taped the paper rules inside the van where the clipboards live. Yara asked what the paper said and nodded like someone who has taken enough inventory to know that most betrayals begin with a flattering camera. A teenager asked how to tie a decent trucker's hitch. Marcus showed him and ended with, "Good enough beats pretty if you respect your knots." Renee signed for a pallet with a pen that didn't want to be famous. I kept my hands busy and my mouth humble. The grid on the back of the boarding pass holder waited for boxes to be colored, which is how governance gets cute in good marriages. At noon, the banner decided to like the wind. We decided to like the banner. The crowd's hum made an honest chorus. We snuck 2 minutes behind the van and touched wrists in daylight like it was a sacrament that knows better than to brag. Marcus walked by with a coil of cord and said, "Daylight, the way a good doctrine keeps its voice down." We laughed because quiet things are stronger when they are allowed to be quiet. We closed with fewer clouds than forecast and a distribution of gratitude that made sense. In the car, Renee taped the rules to the dash with 2 pieces of gaffer like a backstage call sheet. At home, we moved them to the fridge under the boat magnet, which had survived worse seasons with less paperwork. I filled the square labeled invite while lacing and missed one labeled right of reserve the next day and told the truth about why. The grid, it turns out, prefers confession that isn't a performance. That week we argued at 3 in the afternoon like citizens and split a donut like a treaty at 4. On Thursday, I closed my laptop at 10 because the wrist rule will not enforce itself. On Friday, Renee texted come, and I arrived at a warehouse door and held it open for 10 minutes while a line of people who weren't me had their burdens made lighter by seriousness. Saturday night, we watched the airline map on our TV as if it were a weather report for hope. Sometimes I still go to gate C-17 without a boarding pass. I sit with the neon and the carpet and the espresso that believes in duty. I reread the rules on my phone and the grid with its little honest boxes. Every once in a while Marcus finds the same gate by accident, and we talk about tarps the way other men talk about games they never played. He says, "No trials after 2, and the espresso machine doesn't argue. If you came for scandal, I owe you a better airport. Here, what I have: a boarding pass holder with 6 lines, a blue tarp that forgave our early arrogance, a man who understood how to leave space, and 2 people who decided the opposite of a secret isn't a confession, it's an invitation. The rest is maintenance. Donuts before weapons, no trials after 2, wrists in daylight, and a gate you choose to sit beside even when you aren't flying, because some departures are earned by staying."